Good morning. I'm Brian Beckley, and we're here today for our first in a series of episodes talking about primary source documentation. And what we mean by that are basically things that were written down by folks in the past that specifically pertain to what we talk about today. So, for instance, here at Jamestown Settlement, we're looking at written documentation that was recorded by the hands of the people that were here on the ground in Virginia, or by those people who were in England who sent them. So what we're looking at specifically today is a document. Is basically the Virginia Company's marching orders for the colonists when they get here. They've got parameters that have been laid down by the king that kind of touch on the country's goals for this colony. They've got a lot of more general orders from the Virginia Company in terms of their long-term goals, how they want to try to make money for the company and that sort of thing. This is more specifically about here's what you need to do as soon as you get there. And one of the reasons this is one of my favorite primary sources for what we do here is it really not only does it give us a clearer idea of what these folks are here to do and what they're hoping to accomplish when they first arrive, but it really helps to dispel a lot of myth about the early history in colonial Virginia. One of those myths being, for some reason, modern day, there's this conception that these folks had no clue what they were doing, that they just bumbled off into the middle of nowhere, hoping for the best with no real plan. And of course, the reality is quite the opposite. And this set of orders really helps make that clear. Now, for a modern reader, the language can be a bit verbose. Just for example, we'll read the title of the document here, entitled, Instructions Given by Way of Advice by Us Whom It Hath Pleased the King's Majesty to appoint of the Counsel for the intended voyage to Virginia, to be observed by those captains and company which are sent at this present to plant there. It's a bit of a mouthful, but again, basically saying we who are in charge are giving you this following advice. And they refer to some of their other orders as they go on to say, as we doubt not, but you will have a special care to observe the ordinances set down by the King's Majesty and delivered unto you under the Privy Seal. So for your better directions upon your first landing, we have thought good to recommend unto your care these instructions and articles following. So again, specifying this is what you need to do as soon as you get there. Here are your marching orders once you hit the ground in Virginia. Now, one of the big complaints that I would say a lot of historians have levied against the Virginia Company colonists over the years was the selection of their spot for the colony. Saying, gosh, what an awful place to try to live, poor water and damp ground and all that sort of thing. It's just not a great spot. Why on earth did they choose Jamestown Island? And the Virginia Company actually had a lot of instructions for these colonists as to how to go about choosing a place for the colony. So that's what we're going to investigate first. Why on earth did they end up on Jamestown Island, surrounded by swamp and brackish river and that sort of thing? So they start by saying, just here, when it shall please God to send you on the coast of Virginia. And I think that's also a useful bit of context right there. They have reasonable expectations for this right from the start. They know there's going to be a lot of limitations, a lot of things that can impact this. You're at the mercy of the weather very much with this style of ship. They know it's not going to be an exact time estimate as to how long it's going to take them to get here. They know it's not 100% guarantee that they're going to get here. So right there, they're saying, if everything goes well, hopefully when you make it to Virginia, when and if you make it to Virginia, say, when it shall please God to send you on the coast of Virginia, you shall do your best endeavor to find out a safe port in the entrance of some navigable river, making choice of such a one as runneth furthest into the land. So right there it's saying, go inland, go up a river, and it makes sense. Choose the one that you can get a ship as far up as possible. If you happen to discover diverse or many portable rivers, portable, again, navigable, if you happen to discover diverse portable rivers, and amongst them any one that hath two main branches, if the difference be not great, make choice of that which bendeth most towards the northwest, for that way you shall soonest find the other sea. So here's your tiebreaker. If you've got multiple rivers that look like good choices, or if the river you found has two big branches in it, yes, you want to have a good look around, but you don't want to spend too much time, waste too many provisions exploring the whole of Virginia. You need a tiebreaker. You need a way to make some concise and quick decisions. Here's what we go with. If you've got multiple options in terms of rivers to go up, choose the one that points most directly to the northwest. Why? Because one of the goals here, they're hoping that they're going to be able to find a Northwest Passage, a way to get a ship from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean without having to go all the way down and around Africa or down and around South America. Now, from a modern perspective, a lot of times this idea of a Northwest Passage seems kind of laughable. But what do these folks actually know about the interior of this continent yet? You know, we know that there's no Northwest Passage because these folks and everyone that came after them explored, looked for it, and confirmed the fact that no, there just isn't a way to get a ship from one ocean to the other without having to sail all the way down and around. Today, we have the benefit of having the world so thoroughly mapped, being able to go online and go on Google Earth and see exactly what's going on right now, you know, what have you. These folks don't have any of that. All they know is what the coastline looks like and knowledge that there is an awful lot of unknown, at least unknown to them, territory to the west. Maybe there's not a Northwest Passage, but there's only one way to find out. It's to go have a look. So if you have to make a choice between multiple rivers, choose the one that points in the right direction because it's as good a place as any to start looking. And they then go on to say, when you have made choice of the river on which you mean to settle, be not hasty in landing your victual and munitions, but first let Captain Newport discover how far that river may be found navigable, that you may make election of the strongest, most fertile, and wholesome place. For if you make many removes, besides the loss of time, you shall greatly spoil your victuals and your casks, and with great pain transport it in small boats. Now here they are saying, they're specifying, you want to find a strong and wholesome place for the settlement. A lot of historians would say, well, they didn't pull that off. But again, they're saying, don't settle down on the first piece of ground you come to. Take some time once you've chosen the river to find a decent piece of real estate. Have a good look around. You don't want to have to, start unpacking one place, a few days later say, oh, there's a better place halfway up the river. Pack up, go back up, waste a lot of time. Maybe spoil some of your provisions. Have a good look around. Make one good choice and unpack once. I say, if you choose your place so far up as a bark of 50 tons, being a style of ship, a bark of 50 tons will fleet, then you may lay all your provisions ashore with ease and the better receive the trade of all the countries about you in the land. And such a place you may perchance find 100 miles from the river's mouth, and farther up the better, for if you sit down near the entrance, except it be in some island that is strong by nature, an enemy that may approach you on even ground may easily pull you out. And if he be driven to seek you 100 miles within the land in boats, where you shall from both sides of your river where it is narrowest, so beat them with your muskets as they shall never be able to prevail against you. So here again, right in the very beginning, we're told now that defense is a major concern for these folks as well. And as well it should be. Of course, Spain has considered this to be their own territory for quite a long time. Spain's not going to agree with England's claim that this is English territory. So in addition to concerns over the native population that's already here and may not be pleased about having new neighbors, they are absolutely convinced that Spain will be coming after them for control of this territory. And again, with good reason. Since Spain founded St. Augustine in 1565, they've asserted their claim on this territory multiple times by going after other European colonial powers who are trying to, as they see it, usurp their claim on the New World. So these guys have good reason to be concerned that Spain's coming after them. So they don't want to settle down right out on the coast. They don't want to settle on an area where any enemy, but especially the Spanish, can approach them on even ground. They want a good defensive position. So they're saying go as far inland as possible. Again, they're aiming for 100 miles inland. Basically settle in a place where you can draw a potential enemy into a choke point to make it as defensible as possible. So that's a really big concern, is the defensibility of the position that you put your colony in. A little further on in the document, they go on to say, secondly, you must in no case suffer any of the natural people of the country to inhabit between you and the seacoast. For you cannot carry yourselves so towards them, but they will grow discontented with your habitation, and be ready to guide and assist any nation that shall come to invade you. And if you neglect this, you neglect your safety. Now this tells us two things. Not only are they, again, continuing to harp on that theme of defensibility and security, not wanting to have a major native settlement on the water between them and the mouth of the bay, where they would be well positioned to be able to aid and assist the Spanish or whoever else might be coming in after them. They're also telling us that to a certain extent, they don't necessarily see the native population themselves as an immediate impediment to at least the safety of their shipping. They're not concerned about the natives being able to stop their own vessels coming and going. They're concerned about the natives aiding a European foe in coming after them. But they're also here showing, again, they've got some pretty realistic expectations. They're not expecting to waltz in here and be able to be instant best friends with the native population forevermore. They're saying it doesn't matter how you conduct yourself towards the natives. They're eventually going to get tired of you and be ready to guide and assist any enemy. That's a reasonably realistic expectation. Even if you manage to get along with the natives, they're not going to like you forever. Eventually, they're going to get tired of you. So again, these guys are coming in with a pretty realistic expectation for the experience here in Virginia. Little further on through the document here, we get into a couple of more concerns where about choosing your position for the colony. They say you must take especial care that you choose a seat for habitation that shall not be overburdened with woods near your town, for all the men you have shall not be able to cleanse 20 acres in a year, besides that it may serve for a covert for your enemies round about you. Makes sense. Don't choose a place that's deep in the woods. You're not going to be able, you don't have enough manpower to clear cut a tremendously dense forest, which of course you need open ground, not just for farming and that sort of thing, but for defensibility. They're pointing out, even if you build a fort, it doesn't do you a lot of good if you have left your enemy a way to sneak up on it. So whether it be the native population or the Spanish or whoever else, you want a wide open defensive clearing around the fort. So don't choose a place that's densely forested to start with. Again, making a certain amount of just common sense assumptions about the area, even before they leave England. There's a lot of forest over there. Try to find a spot that has a little bit less of it. They then go on to say, neither must you plant in a low and moist place, for it will prove unhealthful. Well, here again, we come to the point where a lot of people would point out that's exactly what they did. They settled in a low and moist place, and on many occasions it did indeed prove unhealthful. So why didn't they follow that order? Why did they end up on Jamestown Island? And a big part of that is going to be, just how familiar are these folks with this territory? How much time do they really have to explore and make an assessment on the region? They arrive in late April and start exploring. They've chosen their position by early May. That part of spring, Virginia, is pretty nice. They also happen to have arrived in the middle of the worst drought the region had seen in several centuries, and some historians have postulated that perhaps because of the lack of rainfall, the island might not have been as moist as it often is. But the main thing is they've got such a short time to assess all of these different locations that they're weighing the pros and cons of. You don't know everything about it yet. So again, the Virginia Company gives them a measurable, basically, a way to determine what place is good. And they say, you shall judge of the clean air by the people. For some part of that coast where the lands are low have their people blear-eyed and with swollen bellies and legs. But if the naturals be strong and clean made, it is a true sign of a wholesome soil. So basically saying, look at the people who already live there. If they look strong and healthy, then clearly it's a healthy place to live. If they don't look like they're doing so hot, then maybe don't settle there. Well, of course, all of their earliest interactions with the natives, the English remark on being very impressed by the physicality of all of the natives. You know, in many instances, they're describing these folks as looking more like Olympian athletes. So, of course, they're going to assume that the area is a healthy place to live. Look at the people that have grown up there. They're all, you know, they're all strong, healthy, muscular. So, by the measurable the Virginia Company has given them, they're making, again, a good decision. You've got some other concerns from the Virginia Company. They want to be able to easily resupply the colony. So in passages in these same orders, they talk about, you know, a place that they can easily get their resupply ships to, like where they mentioned being able to get, you know, a place where a bark of 50 tons will fleet, and that sort of thing. So basically what we're looking at, you want a place that is as far inland as you can get without the natives being between you and the mouth of your river. A position the natives are not actively using so that you don't make the natives angry the moment you move in. You want a place that is not too heavily wooded so that you can clear it with your limited manpower in a short amount of time. You want a place that's going to be healthy and wholesome to live, which you don't have a lot of time to assess it, so you're going to judge that by the quality of the people that live nearby. You want a place that's going to be easy to resupply, and above all, you need a place that is very defensible, that you can defend against any enemy that comes after you. So as they explore up the James River, they get a little ways past what is now Jamestown Island. The Chickahominy River washes into the James, and that's enough influx of fresh water that the salt water that is still impacting the James River at Jamestown Island stops. So that's where the river, with those two rivers coming together, that's where the water becomes reliably fresh. And no surprise, there's the first major native settlement on the James River itself. And such a substantial town, in fact, that not only does it inhabit the peninsula created by those two rivers going ashore, but you've got that town kind of spanning the northern and southern banks as well. So you've got three towns in one. This definitely counts as a major native settlement. So they can't go any further inland, or they're going to have a major native town between them and the mouth of the river. So now they're stuck at barely 50 miles inland, not the 100 miles inland the Virginia Company wanted. So now they've got to go back to, again, what the Virginia Company said. If you can't go that far inland, it's got to be in a place like an island that is strong and defensive by nature. And so they start, again, weighing the pros and cons of various points. And it's not like everybody just agreed, hey, look at that island, that's a great spot. There's a lot of argument. There's an area that was known for a long time as Archer's Hope, because Captain Gabriel Archer and some others argued that that would be the better place to live. And there were certain aspects of it that would have made it more habitable, but it didn't have the defensive qualities that they so very needed. And so Jamestown Island ends up being the one that ticks the most boxes. It's got nice deep mooring waters. They can bring the ships right up to the banks of the island itself, essentially. They talk about being able to tie the ships off, moor the ships to the trees on the banks. So you can get your own ships, your resupply ships, right up next to it. It's a very defensive position, especially where they placed the fort on Jamestown Island. Against any ship coming upriver, you're going to have a decided advantage, especially relying on artillery for defense. You're going to have a major firing advantage from that position against any ship coming upriver. So it's an extremely defensive position. You know, there's during the Anglo-Dutch Wars, they've got a big fortification there on Jamestown Island. Again, you've got a minor fortification and a field hospital there during the American Revolution. The Confederates built 5 forts on it during the Civil War. It's a defensive spot. And so that really draws them there. The natives aren't actively living on it, but there are towns within just a few miles where the natives look extremely healthy. So all of the things the Virginia Company has given them to decide on that spot are met with Jamestown Island. And again, they've got a pretty short amount of time to assess the area. They've got to be making moves as soon as they get here. So, again, given the list of things the Virginia company's given them, the measurables that they've given, they really could not have picked a better spot. Yes, it turns out to have some challenges in getting fresh water and that sort of thing in the long term. And especially during those first few years when the area is still under severe drought. But defensively, again, they're not going to find a better position. So that becomes what becomes your priority. Do you find a place where it's easier to live day to day but has no defensive value? So if and when the Spanish do finally show up, they walk all over you? Or do you find a spot where even if you knew about the challenges ahead of time, it might be a little challenging for things like fresh water and that sort of thing, but it's got that defensive value? Again, take out the experience that they gain over the next several years of living there, not knowing a lot about that position. It's easy to see why that spot looked really appealing for them. Well, again, thanks for tuning in today. That concludes this episode. I'd like to thank you for joining us. Please like and subscribe below. Again, check out our links to our other social media, Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. And again, if you liked this episode, this discussion, please let us know. And if you're interested in original source documentation yourself, the document that this episode were based on are taken from the Jamestown Narratives, edited by Edward Wright Hale. This is a collection of nothing but firsthand documentation from the first 10 years of the colony. You can see pretty substantial volume there. It's available in our online gift shop. Again, check the link below. If you've got an interest in firsthand documentation like we do, this is a fantastic resource. Again, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.